Well, hello, and welcome to the podcast from Duendelvin. I'm Kyle, and we have Jeff with us today. And as you can see, we're missing Corbin, which kind of hurts my heart, and it's my fault. I'll totally own it. I left my microphone at home. That's a lot of things at home today. it was fun getting over here. But all that aside, today we're going to be talking about the Samgatu.
Go.
Oh man, so definitely I am not as good at this as Corbin is. Or Taylor. Both of them crush that intro.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today, we have Ian sitting behind the computer as he
Hello.
usually does, but his mic is on so that he can talk to us and ask all of the questions. He just won't be on screen today. So
Well, heck yeah. All right, and everybody who's come back, welcome. Dave, it's good to have you again. We missed you for the halfling episode. But yeah.
Fun.
All right, Ian, hit us up with that first question.
Are they a matriarch or a patriarch?
So the Samgatu are a matriarchy. They are led by a sultan, but they're patriarchy or
Matriarch.
they're matriarchy.
With an M.
It levels out. That's our fourth matriarchy. So we have 4 and 4 of each, and then the humans are
Biarchy?
either, both.
Yeah.
I still can't figure
They're
out
a
what word to
meritocracy.
use.
That's the best
there.
option.
Yeah, a meritocracy. So whoever's fits. But yeah, so the Samgatu matriarchy.
Isn't Sultan the name of a real world leader?
Yes.
Yes,
A lot of these were real world leadership role titles.
actually,
That
all
was-
of them are.
I've never heard of an Ajushi.
I found them all online as like real leadership, something in the Middle East, I think.
Way back when we were going to make it into a role playing game.
When it was going to be an MMO,
Oh, yeah.
not because we're making the role
That's
playing
right, we're
game,
making a
but
role-playing
back when
game.
it was going to be an MMO.
And massive multiplayer
So,
shenanigans.
But yeah, I looked up just random leadership styles from all over the place.
I remember talking about that. We were going to have like somebody go to the underworld, and if they conquered the underworld, they're going to be the demon king, and you could go and have an entire raid party go and fight the demon king and his raid party. For there was so many great ideas that just would never be applicable. Like never.
And we would need a dev team so big.
Right?
Let's not go to space.
We won't go to space.
All right.
Okay.
No to space.
Then hit us up with that
All right,
next
Ian,
question.
what's up?
What do they look like?
Oh man, there are purple cats. Like that's one of my favorite things. They have different cat stripings, different shenanigans like that. So you can have shenanigans is my word of the day.
It seems to be.
It is. They're full of shenanigans today. So they'll have the purple cat fur, kind of short. But they'll have different stripings of different colorations, anywhere from black all the way to violet. They'll have tiger, leopard, cheetah, and then you can have calico, like weird splotchy situations going on where it pretty much stays varying shades of purple and violet. Yeah, and I mean they're taller. They're about average height as a human.
Well, they're like 5'6" to 5'8" ish.
Yeah, and they have hands, but those hands have claws.
Right. They
And so
do have hands.
They have opposable thumbs. They're not lacking thumbs.
So I want to share this real quick. When we were first designing it, so you guys saw the picture when we post it. The picture will be up so you can see what they are now, or you can go to the website, check them out. But what we had originally designed, what I told the first person, whoever did the artwork, to do, I said, think a cat werewolf and design it that way. So this creature was like super lanky, and the fingers were like this long. Like it would have worked and we'd have made it work, but I love where it has come to now. But I was looking through some of the old stuff, and the second rendition artwork was like this orange cat, so more cheetah-ish.
Yeah.
But like a round face and like, I don't know, just like fat round face, but still slim body.
Yeah.
Really weird. We're gonna I think someday we're gonna post like all the old stuff. I'll have to compile all the old pictures and everything that we have.
And just like have a
But
journey of like we talk
the
about where it
progression.
started, yeah, and like how it progressed,
So-
and that'll be a lot of fun. 'Cause
So yeah, they're
it's been an evolution.
the way that they look now, thanks to Adam, is
yes.
just I think exactly what we wanted it to be.
Give it the
So,
chef's kiss. It's
So
beautiful.
where do they live?
Oh,
they live in Zalome.
in the forest. Not in space.
Not in space.
No, yeah, they live in. There's kind of an interesting concept here. We talked about this a bit because Zalome was the city that was given to them as their capital, and it was built with very military structure in mind, where every building is nondescript. You have no idea when you get into Zalome what building does what purpose, except the cats themselves. They, without being they don't do nasty, but they'll leave like scent trace to let you know what building is what as a Samgatu. So if you do not have a guide, you're not getting anywhere fast. You'll like randomly walk in on somebody's house and be like, oh, my bad.
Thought this was the town hall.
And they'll be like, are you stupid? Just go to the town hall. And those like, what are you doing?
No. The town hall smells like lilacs. Golly. Come on
Come
now.
on, man. It smells like the mayor. Let's go. And so they don't do like the nasty squirting scent mark. It's more like they'll rub the wall, and that's how they leave their scent trace.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll track it that way. But that's the same thing when they go and they build new settlements. Their biggest defense is there's no beaten path. There really isn't. Unless they're guiding you, you're wandering through the woods lost.
Yeah. And they also are the only ones that have an embassy in every other people's land.
Truth.
And so they would also live in other people's lands and interact with them and live in the embassy areas. But those would look exactly the same as all the other buildings.
They'd be very, very plain, drab, unassuming. Like you'd look at it and immediately dismiss it. And like, oh, whatever that is, I don't want it.
Right.
So how are they different from other fantasy cat people?
How familiar are you with cat people?
I'm not particularly.
They're not werecats. They don't have multiple forms. They're not shapeshifters. And they're not. The closest I can think of would be Khajiit from Elder Scrolls, and they're very different from Khajiit. They don't speak like the Khajiit do. They're not technically thieves like everyone assumes the cat people would be. They are very lithe. They're very cat aspect, but they're not thievy, murdery merchant dirtbags.
Yeah.
They I can't think of anything else I can describe them with. They don't actually have a lot of cat features overall. Like they don't work in prides. They don't call themselves anything like that. They don't behave that way. They're not like I'm trying to think of the cat people I can think of.
I don't know a lot about other races cat people, but what I would say is that ours are the strategists.
Yes.
So ours are the like military strategy or like how to use something properly, strategic kind of mentality. And we've joked a couple of times that like if we had a DC Savarion crossover event, Naikawadia would be ready for Batman.
He's been chomping at the bit for this joke. We
Yeah.
talked about it a while. Naikawadia has the contingency for Batman.
Yeah, she has a contingency plan for Batman. So that's the kind of people that the Samgatu are. So,
Dave has some questions.
yeah, I
Heck
was
yeah.
going to say.
The
Send it up.
Samgatu seemed very aesthetic in the art, but having a military-inspired, nondescript building sounds very Spartan. Are their buildings all very plain, or are they very beautiful?
Extremely plain.
Extremely plain.
Like interior is going to be lavish and reflect their personality if you walk into someone's home, but they don't decorate the exterior because they don't need to.
Right.
They don't want to as well. It's part of their.
It's strategic.
It's strategical in nature. That's not even a real word. I don't think strategical is a real word.
Strategical. Sounds real.
It's
It is
real
now.
now.
And then Dave has another question.
Heck yeah.
He was wondering if also the difference between other fantasies is cat puns and dialogues. Do they lick bathe, litter boxes, very emotional expressive tales?
No. and they don't do the lick bathing. They would wash like normal. That's part of the short fur function as well. And no litter boxes.
I'd say the only thing that really is reflective of the cat nature is the fact that they have the tail. They're like
Their tail would be
balanced.
reflective,
They're that kind of stuff, and then their look. But
and the fact that because cats scent mark with their whiskers. That's what they utilize. Well, whiskers give them the extra sensory as well, kind of gives them that heads up. But they rub on things to leave a trace, and that's about the only similarity to cats in our world.
So
besides appearance.
So no litter boxes and no licking to clean.
Nope, they don't lick to clean. They do cat fight. That is a thing.
True.
They used to cat fight quite a bit. Actually, we can get into that later though. Well, I'll try and stay on topic here.
What is their divine purpose?
We've had fun with this one.
Their divine purpose. So the Samgatu's divine purpose is a little more complex than anyone else's divine purpose. So think if we needed somebody who could be set apart from my group of people, that could think outside of the box and help me solve a problem because I needed an expert in the field that wasn't indoctrinated the way that I was, that's the people group that they would be. Mm-hmm. And so if I was working on a new technology, right, as a dwarf, and I'm trying to solve a gun, let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm trying to figure out how to create an item that will projectile something solid like a gun does, right? And I can't quite solve it, and all of my buddies were all stuck in the same place. I could be like, well, let me go ask the Samgatu. They might have a different perspective, because the ones that live in the emissary near Durzan are going to be experts in the field of technology, because that's what they do. And so they would be kind of like the other perspective to help define like what I'm trying to do. Mm-hmm. So
you'd be your soundboard. You'd be able to go to them and be like, hey man, we're having this struggle. And also they'd help you make sure to see a different picture for what you build. So they'd be like, hey, I want to have this projectile and it's for launching seeds. And they'll be like, hold the phone now, because have you thought about what they could do with this? And the guy's like, ah, dang it. My seed gun's going to turn into a murder machine. That kind of stuff. So they help to do the quality assurance as well. That's what we call it QA, but not really QA, because they're not testing it for its quality. They're more making sure that it fits to the world.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make sure that what gets there isn't going to be abused, because they can see from the other races' perspectives as well. Because when you live, like I said, with one solid group in isolation, the viewpoints tend to kind of come together, and you have the same similar outlook. So when they were created, they were like, we have a problem, we need to fix that. And that's what the Samgatu were, the fix. The little brother that helps everybody.
Yeah. And they also have the book is their divine gift.
The book.
I think Kyle's touched on this, 3 times now?
Maybe.
So they have this book where they can read the book and essentially see from the mindset of whoever was writing that. And that technology gets used by another organization that we'll talk about when we talk about
shadowy organizations.
Very shadowy organization. But so the Sultan would be able to read this book and see like, okay, this is their perspective, and be able to interpret from the perspective of everybody in their nation and that kind of stuff. And so that's another add-on to their ability to see from different perspectives, give new light on something, how is this going to affect in the long run, all that kind of stuff. So they were very much that, and the book helped the Sultan see all of that, and you could talk to the Sultan. And
because the book was not given to the common people. The common people weren't, unless the Sultan gave specific unique access to a certain portion of the book that was for the ruling class only. Which, talked about it, are they bloodline?
Yes,
that's what I thought, but I couldn't remember.
Real quick,
that's right, you're born into your station. I had a moment.
Real quick, I have a question.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about the embassies.
Yes.
And that they had embassies in every single group.
Yes.
So would the people who are stationed in the Dwarven embassy just be master tinkerers, or would they also be master brewmasters? Or would that be solely to the Minotaurs also?
So,
Brewmaster didn't actually become a thing until after the affirmation.
well, but he's
Yeah, but
saying
yeah.
like a master of alchemist as well. So think of it this way, right? Like everyone kind of has their own affinity towards things. So even in the dwarven culture, you'd have people who were like, I want to work on technology that affects travel. And somebody else would be, I want to work on warfare, or I want to work on mining, or whatever the case is. They would all have their independent, but dwarves are specifically for like creating, right? Whereas your Samgatu, when they are growing up, they would say, oh, hey, I'm interested in, and I kind of have an affinity towards. And so they would be sent to that embassy, if that makes sense. So your alchemist, Samgatu, would be sent to
Minotaur.
the Minotaurs. So does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
But they do have that unique perspective on what they can see outside of their ideology. So maybe you are, as a dwarf, working on something, and they can be like, huh, this will affect this race this different direction this way. So they're not locked into, yes, I have an affinity for tinkering, but I can also see from every perspective, because that's just the way I'm built. I see the big picture. So yeah, that's one. I don't know if we got covered because I got distracted. Somebody was trying to call me. Spam calls. I spend most of my time setting those up for blockage. Anyway.
How do they govern?
Okay. So that's why we talked about this a lot. Making sure we were fleshed out, and then I had a herp dirt moment. No, they are born into their stations. When you are the son of a builder, you are the son of a builder, that your children will be builders, and so forth and so on. You are born to where you belong. And they believe that wholeheartedly. They don't have that ambition in the same way that other races did. What upsets them, I have to watch my language, what upsets them the most when they're governing is if someone is born into the station and they are in charge of you, they're bad at their job. Something happened, or they're just not taking it very seriously, or they just don't, they're not efficient. It will drive people nuts. And eventually someone, and this is in their old history, would challenge that person to a duel, to the death. Okay, this is how they would handle it. This is their cat fight. And they would duel to the death. And then they would proceed to continue to eradicate that lineage. That whole family line would go away because it was a bad seed. And that was like a big proponent of the corruption that came when Vagog entered and ruined their core divine purpose.
Yep.
So it took away their ambition, and they all listen to the Sultan regardless. The Sultan is born into it, and unless somebody challenges the Sultan for leadership, they are... they don't care. If they're born into a position, they're trained from birth, and they desire to support the person in charge as best as they possibly can.
Right.
They don't have a need or desire to go above, beyond, or around unless that person is incompetent. And it takes a lot of mistakes before they're finally, it takes a long time to rouse them to move, but once they move, it's like a rolling stone. Everything in the path gets crushed.
Yeah. So it's the opposite of ambition.
Yes.
So I'm not ambitious to take your spot. You're worthless, so I need to.
Yep.
So
Davey
has another
question.
Heck yeah.
Is there no way to break the caste system, or do any of the Samgatu even have a desire to break the caste system?
So I
It
think
would be a corruption that Vagog would apply, where they would suddenly feel this. That would be considered an affront to their natural purpose.
right. So they have no desire to break the caste system. It's part of their design purpose, right? So remember, we've talked about a couple of times where your divine purpose is primary, right? So built into the divine purpose is your station. So literally, unless there's somebody who is stepped out of their divine purpose and become worthless in their place, there's no desire to change station or anything like that. And so I wanted to cover real quick the emissary thing. So emissaries are born into as an emissary. And so if you were born as an emissary class, you would grow up like wherever you were at the time. And then when you found your affinity, you would move location, but you would stay an emissary. So...
And so if you had an essence awakening, it would kind of change what you did, potentially depending on that awakening. So when you hit your puberty level, you would be like, oh, okay, and then you would go and move into that spot. And that would just be a natural progression of I'm maximizing my talent to support this new role. So there is the potential for a lateral shifting of position. And then as far as, I think we have another question from Dave there.
We do. What does their weapon system look like?
Cats have claws. So when they were cat fighting to the death, they would generally, unless they chose something other than that, because they're going to use other weapons available to them. They still have, everyone still has like basic function. So if you were a smith as a Samgatu, you would be able to make weaponry for your people. It just would not be goblin quality.
Right.
And when they were fighting, they would kind of maximize that natural capability. Or if they wanted to just be like, yeah, we're going to cat fight it out, you would go claw to like tooth and claw. The claws are way more deadly, and it kind of became a problem. Actually, I want to talk about this. It's kind of fun. Their cat fighting, their dueling, was starting to become an issue because they were eradicating whole bloodlines. And so they wanted to find a way to resolve this, but they needed to find some way that was going to fulfill the purpose that was necessary. And they went to the humans and the dwarves, and they're like, hey, bros, we're having a problem with this. This is a thing. We need to fix it. And they're like, let's get on it. And the dwarves and the humans and then the goblins put it into the crafting. They built a game. And this is the very first race that instituted the we have a game to resolve our problems. And it's Tactica is what we called it. It's effectively 4-way chess. And this is one of those brain children that we were sitting there one day and Jeff and the kids came up with.
So what you would do is, like, the person who's being challenged and the person who's challenging would sit at the table, and then they would each choose another member of their bloodline, right? So if Kyle was challenging me, I would have Ian sit across from me as my teammate, and he would choose maybe Taylor as his other person sitting across from him. And so you'd sit across from your teammate and next to your opponents. And so for those of you who know chess, which I mean, I imagine a lot of people do. It's a pretty popular game for a long time. But chess, right, is designed where I take my turn, you take your turn, we go back and forth. And then whoever takes the king loses, or whoever takes the king wins.
Yeah.
Right. So Tactica is built similarly. So the pieces play a little bit differently than they do in chess, but it's essentially like a similar feel to the game. But think like 4-way chess. And we have pieces that do other things, and you can actually like change which pieces you're using. So it's not static. You don't have, the same exact pieces as your opponent does, or even as your teammate. And so you kind of design your team within the rules of the design. You can't be like, I have this guy that wins, and this guy that wins, and this
it's not
guy.
I win.
Right. There's still a balance system, but like from the available pieces, you put them in and you design your team. And so you do that. And then when you start the game, there's a timer that the dwarves designed, and it's just like a sand timer. Yeah. And so you start it halfway, and I stand it up, and then I take my turn and pass it. And then, and I flip it and pass it. Right. And so if the time runs out, like let's say Taylor's time runs out, I get to take it from her and flip it over and then take my turn, even if she hasn't taken her turn. And so it is a combination of tactics, knowing what pieces do what and how to effectively go against it, doing it in a timely manner, and knowing how to fight with your teammate. All of those things are necessary, and there's not enough time to crosstalk. Nope. So when you talk about those games where, like Spades, for instance, where it's like you can't crosstalk, you can't discuss your cards with your partner, yada, yada, yada. In this game, it wouldn't matter because there isn't time. Exactly. Right? You get like 1 minute to make a decision, or somebody's going to take your turn anyway, and you're done.
And missing a turn is, so I'm talking about, like, you have the amount of time available to you that they took. So the faster your turn goes, the less time they have to react. So it is very much a stay engaged, stay on topic, and very predictive. You have to know your opponent and learn how your opponent thinks to be able to predict what they're going to do, because you can get knocked out, which is the thing. Yep, and it's not about, like, if you lose your king on your side, you're still playing. You still have armies to push and play with and pieces.
Yes.
And it's not until both kings are taken that the game is over. And we will have fun making sure it's all balanced. We'll get to release this eventually because we have Lost in the Woods that we're excited for the human side of it. And so effectively the Samgatu, Samsum. Sorry. The Samgatu, they started this trend and then they kind of spread. Everyone's like, this is actually a really smart idea. And so every race started developing their own, like working and developing their own game, and it suited their strengths. And it was a lot of fun. And so we effectively have 9 more games after the board game and the expansions that we get to release.
Well, yeah, there'll be like 9 little mini games or the games that the races played.
Mm-hmm.
So
that way
we have a new person asking a question.
Oh, heck yeah.
Ashley.
Hello,
Sorry if
Ashley.
you have answered, but I'm wondering about the monetary situation and what are the wealth levels in the game based on?
So the only race that has money at all at this time frame in the world are goblins. They're the only ones that do it, and they're considered bad for it because money that they've developed is from draining the life force out of a creature that's dead and then turning it into a solid format so that they can continue to serve the people in death. Most other races work on a barter system, and our Samgatu are no different. They barter their trade. They don't really have a need to transfer money across, not until after this event called the Affirmation, where these 4 dirtbags kind of decimate a whole bunch of the armies and say, hey, look, we're gods, and accept it or die.
right.
And
So
that's when it was.
Which we covered in Creation Part 2?
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm asking this
Right.
question right, but from the sound of it, Ashley doesn't know what a barter system is.
That's fair. So if I go to Jeff and I'm like, hey, Jeff, I'm really, really, really good at writing history. So how about I write your history and you're really, really good at with your hands. I have a problem I need you to fix for me, and I will then write the history of your people for you that you can have to pass on.
Yeah.
Trading service for service. That's a really bad example, but effectively I'm trading service for service.
Yeah, it is trading service for service. So your farmers just farm,
says she
and then they
got it.
have
Heck yeah.
food, right? Okay, she said she got it. All right, I won't keep explaining it then.
No need to beat a dead horse.
How long
Or
did they
horse of
live?
lamb. Basalt. They 400 years. Our Samgatu live 400 years
400
on average, unless something takes their life unnaturally.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, that's true about everybody.
except for a couple of dirtbags who live forever. Well, kind of, until they explode.
Exactly. Yeah, they're kind of the middle of the road
Yeah.
race. Not quite as old as
Muscapert.
Muscapert, Minotaur, and Elves all outlive them. And then they live, so they're like the 4th oldest, I think.
Which is kind of funny because our druggies live the third longest, or the second longest.
The second
Yeah.
longest.
Which I know Corbin wants to be on screen because he loves the Minotaur. Those are his people, and we get to talk about them next.
So Dave has another question.
Heck yeah.
Does the loser of Super Chess, Strategia,
Tactica, yep.
still get killed,
No.
unalived, or do they just get a demotion?
They get demoted and they move out. The whole point of this was to stop the bloodshed.
Yep.
And so the family puts everything on the line. And both of them do, because if you're the challenger and you fail, then you're no longer able to work in that caste system and you have to go find some other place to find purpose.
Wouldn't it be that you replaced each other?
That would make the most sense.
So if I'm here and you're here and you're terrible at your job, I'm going to challenge you. It used to be I'm going to clear out your
Entire
lineage
Because your
and then
seed
you
is
don't
bad.
exist and step up into it. And now it's a switch places. And so if you lose, you become where I was and I become where you are.
As the leader being challenged. If you're the challenger, then yeah, you get gone. You just have to leave. You and your family find a new purpose or go somewhere else effectively, because you can't work under this person. It's been proven. You lost. Whether you can reconcile that or not is up to you. So it's kind of a big deal, because you will lose your entire family's position if you fail this. So it's practice games, consistent. Kids are taught this game at a very early age because it's necessary. It's like a check and balance for every leader, because they know that if they screw up too much, someone is going to challenge them. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Make enough mistakes that people can't tolerate.
Unless
and
you're really good at your job.
if you're really good at your
and
job, that's
everybody
fine.
likes you and
But if you're really good at your job, but your grandfather was not really good at his job, you still have to carry that burden of his failure. And so it counts up, and it's a grudging, but it's not a grudging.
Dave has another question. He's taken my job. He's curious about the home life. They kind of remind him of Imperial Japan. So do they have a loving, very cozy home, or is it more like how useful and successful you are, and how much you contribute? And what's their social life and friendships like?
Okay. Yeah, we can run at this together.
Yeah. So again, the outside of the buildings are all identical. Every building looks the same, but the inside looks different. And that'll be personalized. Everybody has a different. But as a general rule, I know we're talking about the caste system and the challenges and, things like that when those happen, but those would not be like a normal everyday kind of a thing. The Samgatu, because of their position and their divine purpose, are actually extremely helpful.
Yep.
And so they're a kind of people that are helpful by nature. And so unless there's a real need for challenging somebody's position, there wouldn't be a challenge for somebody's position. So they would be a very caring, very loving, very helpful, without desire for more.
Yeah.
Right. Which is also why the barter system works for them. The farmer is going to come in and bring all of the food, and I'm going to just grab whatever I need and take it, because when he needs something from me, I'm going to provide it.
Absolutely.
There's not a checks and balances with that, because due to my divine nature, I'm, on the onset, just a giving, helpful, friendly kind of person.
Exactly.
And so they would be a lot more, probably more than any other race. They would be more friendly, large group gatherings, hanging out together, that kind of...
excessively social is a good way to put it. They're
excessively social. Really anti-cat.
Yep. So they would definitely, host big banquets for everybody to celebrate small feats, that kind of stuff, and just have a great time together. They would crave interaction because it sharpens their ability, not as competitors, but to be able to support each other. You don't know what somebody needs if you're not being able to befriend them. So their friendships are actually very tight-knit. And to challenge somebody, the reason that the challengee who fails leaves, it's because they effectively broke that friendship in an effort to say, hey, look, I don't think you're doing a good enough job. I think I can do better, but it's only because of the greater good of the people, and I'm sick and tired of supporting incompetence. Like, I feel like it's not helpful. So we need to fix this. And that's really where it came from. It wasn't a, I can do it better than you, let me show you kind of deal. It's more along the lines of, I will take on this burden.
Right.
It is always it's a burdensome thing, but they still have to practice and train for it because it's part of their duty is to help each other and support each other. And if it gets to a point where you can't support stupidity, you got to get it out because it's bad for the whole people.
Right. And there would be, so like in the embassies, right? Let's say I was stationed over with the Minotaurs, and I helped the Minotaurs discover a new alchemy thing that, made you fly.
Not a thing.
Because now I can fly. But whatever the case is, but even like small, big, it wouldn't matter, right? And like an envoy from the Sultan, maybe even the Sultan, if she had time, would come with to celebrate that. And they would bring all kinds of cool stuff, and they'd be like, let's celebrate. And they'd throw this big party and have everybody over. They'd invite the Minotaur to come join him and stuff like that. So just,
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Oh, dang.
Walter.
Do they have any notable creations or contributions to the greater world as a whole?
They have their hand in everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. The magic advancements, Samgatu were a supporting role in that. Matter of fact, if you go in the book, every sultan had a affinity for a particular race that they worked with and helped that experience to progress further. So yes, every creation in Savarion has a piece of the Samgatu influence into it. The other notable figure, obviously, we talked about Nyquadia, who is our super Batman as far as the preparations go. And we kind of talk about her story a little bit, unless we want to do a special episode for each of the heroes. We could do one of those. We haven't talked
Maybe.
about that.
I don't know.
Because we talked a lot about her, the fact that she was she was a prodigy in her own right. She was a savant when it came to the Samgatu people. And because of that, her parents were like, oh, she can handle it. And so when she was very young, they introduced her to the book, and she began studying the book way sooner than she should have, which is where her epic insight comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So not only was she born super insightful, they then honed that into a dagger, which kind of made her jaded. She was very bored. I love writing her personality in the story, because she's literally just like, I don't want to do it. And so she's just constantly dipping out because it's all boring.
She just write all the plans and then go. But the way, like, from a strategical standpoint, and the reason we gave them the +1 to the die roll is this, but or maybe it worked the other way around. I don't know, chicken and egg situation. But so if I was a general out on the field, and so Nayakawadi was the leader during the fall, so during the board game.
Yes.
And so a general out in the field would literally be out against whoever, right? And he would have a
Set of
scrolls with him, right? And so let's say we were up against
Let's go with the goblins.
the goblins. Okay, and the goblins flanked us from the right. I'd be like, goblins flank from the right. Open that. Okay, this is what I need you guys to do, right? And it'd be like, oh, the humans responded from the rear. Oh, I have a card for that.
Yep.
All right, this is what we need to do, right? Because Nayakawadi literally detailed not just what would happen, but every possible outcome that ever could happen from the entire war, and then gave them out to the generals, and were like, okay, in this situation, do these things, and so they were, I mean, when we played through the first time and we ended the game, it was the halflings and the Samgatu were left. 9 of the 10 Samgatu characters were still alive. It was dynamic.
Absolutely devastating, because the halflings had more racial bonuses.
Yes.
But they were a smaller army, so they were still holding their own, utilizing their tactics really well. But yeah, the Samgatu were just
ready for it.
They had a decent amount. When we first made the Samgatu in the board game too, they had a +2, not a +1.
It was ridiculous.
It was insane. They didn't die. They never lost.
Right, because a +2 on a die roll, like, I didn't think it was going to be that dynamic, but it really was.
And so to have that, we kind of took that idea that a bonus actually holds a lot more weight into the role-playing game, the tabletop that we're building.
Mm-hmm.
So a plus has a whole lot more influence than an extra die increase or anything like that. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you could stack our Battle Honed is the new name for it. It used to be called Enhancement. And they would get a +3 to all their die rolls, which made them untouchable.
Right. There's no way to beat them.
Like, unless you even, like, because the defender always wins. So if you crit, it didn't matter because they would critically defend against you and you'd be done for.
Right. So I could roll a 17 and still won.
Negate.
So
yep, it had to be fixed.
It had to be fixed. But it is, and now it's just a +1, so you can get a +2, but anybody else can get a +1. And some reason
that works better.
That 1 instead of the 2 balances the game, and like they have an edge, but it's not enough that they're just dynamically winning every time.
Exactly.
So,
which is kind of wild. I'm not a mathematician. I'm sure there's an equation that actually makes that make sense somewhere, but
yeah, but who knows?
Which we joke about. I'm not really good at math. And then my daughters the other day when I was doing homeschool looked at me and they're like, Dad, why does your game have so much math in it? I was like, well,
it's just a math game.
Because it's a math game. We play with math rocks.
It's math rocks.
So, but so the only time that Nayakawadi actually experienced, after she became a teenager and like started stepping into adulthood, she stopped being excited for life and anything like that until the moment she had a moment that was like, I'm so excited.
I didn't see any of this.
I didn't foresee this. And we get to talk about how that transpired next or on Thursday, because the Minotaurs are responsible for it.
Minotaur.
Renstarry, the insane Minotaur.
Was it Renstarry?
Yes.
Renstarry,
the insane Minotaur.
He's the insane spearman, yes. He's a spearman.
So, but
and my gosh.
What made Nayakawadi excited?
Okay, so they're having their combat, right? And everything's going as predicted, and then in the middle of this conflict, the underworld opens up, which has never happened before, and so all of a sudden she has to take a physical, active interest in what is happening and learn a whole new set of things because, like, yep, the halflings and the Samgatu are fighting, and the Samgatu have the orc support team supporting their people so they can focus more on offense. And the halflings are putting up a strong fight because they have so many different racial powers. And they're doing great. And then all of a sudden, here comes this unexpected force of Immortuum, which are the guys who can't take damage unless you heal them.
They're opposite.
They're
you heal
opposite,
them, they
yep.
take damage. You attack them, they feel better.
Yep.
Unless you slap them with a big hammer.
In the role-playing game, we kind of gave them some different rule sets where as long as you're not using magic, they can take damage. So if you hit them without infusing your abilities with essence.
Right. But in the board game, it's going to be very black and white.
It's very black. Yeah, it's very much you can't hurt me unless you do this. But when we introduce them, there are classes that get introduced at that time to help combat that new racial capability.
So sneak peek. The Immortuum and Kamatai are 2 of the 4 races that we are introducing in the Destruction of Savarion, the second board game.
It's only 3. We're doing 3? We're doing 4? We're doing 4?
We're doing 4.
We're doing 4. We're
It's
doing
4
4.
and 4.
That's news to me. I like it.
We're doing 4 new races and 4 new classes in the first expansion. 4 new races, 4 new classes in the expansion number 3.
Yep.
So
okay. Heck yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
But
so that'll be 2 of them. So
it's gonna make such a huge melee. It's gonna be amazing. We'll have to do some play testing. I'm excited to see if you can actually put a game together with every single race represented on the board, and if it makes sense and if it's still playable with the way we built the game. It should be, and I'm excited for it. But that's effectively, we're talking 17 people at the table at one time, at max.
At max.
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of
That's
damage.
A lot of people. But when we release the game and you guys can all see the rules and how to play the game, you'll understand why that won't be a big deal.
It'd be a lot to keep track of, but not a big deal.
But not a big deal.
Yep.
The gameplay won't take any longer. So, so some other key players.
There'll be like 12 people going at the same time.
Dave made a comment about hit that motor with a phoenix down.
I don't know what that means.
In Final Fantasy Tactics, there's a couple of enemies that are undead, and a phoenix down in all Final Fantasy games. It technically does enough or heals you enough to come back to life. That's how it works, but it only works if you have the dead status. If you use it on an undead enemy in the game, it would insta-kill it. So you could use a Phoenix down and throw it at an undead unit, and it would do all of its health in one hit as long as you hit it with the Phoenix down.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
So yeah, no, our Immortuum...
Hit an Immortuum with a Phoenix down.
It would be done for.
So,
but luckily, no one has to that. Also, we didn't. Our Immortuum are flesh shapers. They get goofy. They have a lot of time on their hands.
We'll have
in the
to talk
underworld.
about them another time.
And that's definitely. So we're staying with
that
some
comes
Samgatu.
in its own episode.
Yes, we'll do an episode of the lesser and greater gods.
Yep.
Where did the greater gods, the lesser gods, and then
I thought we
did creation.
we did creation.
I thought we were gonna do one on the underworld and one on the overworld.
Yeah, we could do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I like it.
We'll figure it out.
We'll have some more content for you guys and more fun and understanding there.
Yeah. So a couple other of the key players throughout history. So Pameo was given the spear when Vegog was fought. What?
I love we had the spear when we first introduced it. The spear turned into a looking glass, so you could
yeah.
you could be like, oh, I see you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, so she participated in the first
banishment,
imprisonment.
Yeah,
of
the
Vegog?
imprisonment of Vegog.
Yeah, and then the most notable Samgatu of all time is Ayala.
Dirtbag.
For those of you who already know who Ayala is, this will be a little bit of a recap. But Ayala was a created, not a born.
Yep.
So Ayala was literally like the first male created Samgatu in all of history.
He sat at the feet of the two gods,
Right.
and knew them both personally.
Yes. and he was a high priest of Parbulkon until
Who's also a
Vagog showed
dirtbag.
up. Yeah, who's also a dirtbag.
So it figures
Until
a dirtbag
Vagog
needs a
showed up.
dirtbag. Yep.
Yeah, and then Ayala realized that Vagog was
More
the
enticing.
response of Parbulkon's mistake.
Yep.
And became the high priest of Vagog. And then joined the Keepers of the Peace.
Vagog's the one that gave him agelessness.
Yes.
That was her gift for his conversion.
Yes. And then he taught it to the Keepers and helped design the Shimbare and the Horakai. Gave Duendelvin her ability to see through everyone else's perspective.
Effectively
as
broke
is,
her.
Do what?
He broke her at first.
He broke her. But as is the Samgatu ability, the book, the
Yep.
ability to see through others, he corrupted that power and gave that to Duendelvin.
We have another question.
And then was part of the second release of Vagog. After the destruction, Vagog decided to tell everybody what the truth was and released Vagog for the
Ayala released Vagog.
the rebirth section, and then finally dies
When he explodes.
when he explodes.
And all the gods get kicked out.
Yes.
You may have never thought of this, but I'm curious. If a whole trade got wiped out for some unfortunate reason, would the Samgatu lose that skill, or would children of another craft be born with the calling for the missing trade?
So we're talking if a trade, like an entire family lineage, got wiped out because they were incompetent. The only, like, if they had a secret that they took with them, then yes, that would be completely wiped out. But it would kind of, because there would be someone supporting you. So you have a blacksmith and you have a blacksmith's apprentice, right? And effectively it'd be the apprentice who was tired of working under that blacksmith or that support team. So you had like your forge worker who's sitting there and he's watching, he's learning, he's supporting, he's helping. The actual knowledge of creating that item wouldn't be lost. Like we wouldn't have, but like they may have had a secret technique in their family that they
He's
weren't
saying
applying.
no, like if all the bakers died or all the blacksmiths died,
Never happened. I don't think
and
it could
all of
happen
their family.
because there's so many different
Yeah.
races that could make that a thing as well. That
So
would,
okay, so if I was going to wipe out your family lineage, I would be the person that was your under. And so I would be learning the trait from you when I decided to wipe you out. And so I would be taking your place. It wouldn't be like an emissary wouldn't show up to a baker and wipe out a baker's lineage.
but
Baker,
if a cultist group attacked and wiped that individual out, maybe like an outside force executed that person, would that trade be lost? And I don't, because like
well, no, because the Sultan would be able to access the information and teach it to the next group.
there'd be enough history left over. Like there's enough safeguards because you could go, like all the bakers and their families got on the Titanic and it sinks.
Yeah. So you'd have the Sultan to go back to, and the Sultan could basically instate a new family into that role, and then give them
The knowledge they needed.
necessary to accomplish that. That's how that would go, because there's no way to. I mean, you would have to destroy the book.
The book, and then you'd also have to destroy every single baker from every single race all at once at the same time for them all to
Right.
lose the ability to make bread.
Yeah.
And all of the baker's apprentices.
I hope we got the question right.
Or the answer right.
Sorry, the answer, like, I understood the question right, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't think we can get the answer wrong. Can we get...
What do you mean we can't get the answer wrong?
I mean, if we're answering the question, it's more about, are we answering the right question, not are we proffering the wrong answer?
I don't think there is such thing as a wrong question.
Well, if we
No,
misunderstand...
what Kyle is saying is that, are we interpreting the question right so that we are answering it the way that he wants it to be answered, is the question, not whether or not we're telling the truth.
Yeah.
That was the distinction.
That was the joke.
Because we're telling the truth.
We're talking
Because
about this world we created.
We made it up. So we get to do that a little bit.
So the
So the Sultan would take the
okay.
place from another craft and switch them to bakers. He'd take the blacksmith and tell him to be a baker.
He
Teach him.
could. He could take a lineage and be like, okay, you guys are now in this cast. We need to fill this role. And they would accept that because
It was
it
necessary.
it was necessary for the greater good. And then their lineage would become a thing.
Sultan.
Do what?
And the Sultan's the Sultan.
Yep, and
Just
they'd
has all the
listen to
power.
the leader. Absolutely.
Well, and the Sultan could see big picture, like who would be the best people to step into this role and who would be like not effective to step into this role, and he would figure out, or she would figure out which family would facilitate this role the best to move them over, or maybe move over like a part of this family and a part of this family and a part of this family, move all three of them, just small pieces of them over, and build a new lineage from that. So it could be a number of different things, but the Sultan would ultimately understand
the best place to pull from. So if you had an abundance of, say, emissaries in this location, you could take a branch of that emissary family and be like, all right, guys, you get to come touch the book.
the book.
The book. Which would be a huge deal. Again, I'm making kind of a joke of it, but for real, that would be like getting access to something that would be absolutely insane for someone of their station.
Well, think of it like this, since we're on the baker.
Yeah.
That would be like if I wanted to learn how to bake and I was able to go to a book and I could literally read the book and I would be in the mind of, oh man, I lost it. What's his name?
Gordon Ramsay.
No, not Gordon Ramsay.
No,
That would be Chef.
Yes, Chef. There's Julia Child. Not
The
Julia Child.
the dude that does all the cupcake war stuff.
Oh, Buddy. No.
Yeah.
Duff.
There's Duff, yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Duff. So it would be like if I was just sitting here and I'm thinking, I would love to learn how to bake. And you open a book and now I have access to Duff's mind, right? Not his external teaching. I actually can see what he knows from his perspective.
His thought process.
Why it works, how it works, all that kind of stuff. I'd have access to that
His instinct as
in
well.
that book.
Yep.
And it'd be like, okay. And that's why it would be such a big deal. It wouldn't be like reading a recipe book.
No.
So
You are living his experience. You are getting the chance to effectively step into his shoes quite literally.
right. So
So yeah, I can't. Never something I actually thought about, like an entire profession being wiped out because there's so many different races and so many different. They get just the feasibility of it, but like it would be different. Like baking in the Samgatu realm would be different than baking in the Siduri.
True. But I mean, to even get rid of the Samgatu baking and the knowledge thereof, you would literally have to kill every single baker and destroy those pages in the book.
Yep.
Many bakers.
There's no way you're getting to the book. One, good luck finding your way to the book without someone to guide you. And two, yeah, no. You'd have so much fighing. So much.
You would need to march an army in there to get rid of the book.
Well, I mean, effectively, they did try and march an army, but then actually, the army never touched the, Zalom. It's our only non-S city.
It's alone. It's also the only one in the storyline that no one took from the Samgatu.
Yep.
So the +1 power.
We could change the city's name to Salom.
No, I like it as
No,
Zalom.
it's Zalom.
We are not changing it.
But in the story, it's the only one that did not get overrun. Well, the Halfling and the Samgatu one are the only two that didn't get overrun and taken by another race. Huh?
The orc never got taken either. Because
I guess that's true.
Yeah, the orc never got taken either. The orc, Samgatu, and the
And
halfling
it would have all been
stayed.
destroyed when the underworld came up. Because the underworld came up and literally wiped everybody off the map. The Samgatu, the halflings,
Except for the children that the Horakai. So this is what we're going to talk about.
in the overworld.
Because the Horakai were in the process of eradicating the back lines while the warriors were out fighting the war. So they were going through and systematically just killing mothers and anyone who was over the age of 2.
Right.
And then snatching up the kids. So there wasn't as much widespread destruction, but they had a lot of bodies to make undead with.
Yep.
And that's kind of what happens. We don't really talk about it as much, but because of the Horakai were a massive force, and so while they were fighting, even in Kungan, it's the kind of the Kungan ridiculousness is, what are you gonna do when they fly? So the Horakai came in and were wiping out the orc families.
Yeah.
I thought the city was built to keep the gods out, so how could you fly over the walls as not even as
It wouldn't have been
powerful as
designed
a
to keep
god?
the gods out. It was designed to keep other races out.
It was designed to
You
protect
said-
the other races from everything. And we joked about it that, yes, if you had a piece of the planet break off, that the city would adapt and create a bubble of atmosphere, and then you could have Kungan and fly through the world. But quite frankly, they wouldn't view the Horakai as a threat until they were already within the city. They'd know how to handle that, because once they're inside, you can't put a bubble to protect the city from what's already in it.
Right.
You did say
But
it
when
was
the-
built to keep the gods out on the orc video.
That's weird because we didn't mean it like the god. It was built to withstand all calamity.
Right.
That's the whole point of it. It was Kungan is big enough, so if there's there, my apologies, and I trust Ian. It's not like we joked that it could keep the gods out. I think was more the intent.
Like the wall could handle
God
anything.
power, yeah. But if it's already inside the wall, it's only going to be able to do so much.
Also, the Horkai weren't considered enemies at that
Nope.
time.
They weren't enemies until they began slaughtering in mass.
But with all that being said, that book would have been during that time the only group of people that were not from the underworld that survived the underworld uprising was the secret society that's a little shadowy.
And we
And
dropped their name a couple of times in other
know,
episodes.
right?
So it's the Shadows
the
Guild.
Shadows Guild.
Because
they would
a
have
secret
taken the
base.
book
Yep.
because they use it
to
a
help
couple of
spread their
times,
knowledge. Yeah.
in history that book becomes part of the Shadows Guild informational chain, and it becomes the way that they
Maintain and prepare the next leader.
right and create other books that do similar things. So that book is actually preserved, but it's preserved in Nazek in the Shadows Guild capital in the mountains.
Hidden. It's actually underground. You
Nobody
have to
knows
teleport
where it
to
is.
get
Mountains.
to it. Yeah. Like that's kind of fun. They have port stones scattered across. That's a whole different thing we won't even get into yet. That's a different type of magic.
Did you say portation or teleportation?
Teleportation. They have
Teleportation.
Like they have port stones that you would utilize with a particular ring that gives you access, and then you tap that. All on the floor. Tap that. Gosh dang it.
I almost did it too.
But they throw like big parties and they kind of hang out. But like their kids would be trained. I want to talk about this real quick in how to like fulfill the purposes very early on. And all of the kids are from their starting. They started learning how to play Tactica once it was introduced pretty aggressively. Before that, it would be a lot of play fighting because they'd have to know how to duel, and that was what kept things in line. So something we kind of skipped over in their day to day because those kids went from being martially trained in order to execute a necessity to then sharpening their minds even further in their predictive skills and like playing against their parents in Tactica. And then playing against other families in Tactica and learning new strategies and building their armies. And you would carve or effectively get your set as a gift.
Yeah.
And then you would change, customize, and alter your army based on your strategy.
So would there be peacemakers? Not like people who make peace, but like people who carve out the pieces for the game.
Yes.
Oh well, yeah, of course.
But getting a goblin crafted Tactica set would be choice. Like I don't know how else to...
Very durable.
They would also be extremely like detailed and gorgeous and as yes durable and possibly like just I can't say possibly because like I'm picturing them like being gem studded if you wanted to go that way, and like you have to make some serious favor promises because most of the goblins operate in monetary value within their own culture, but outside their culture it was still they had to barter because
Right.
no one wants to use the death dealer or the death sellers.
Not
Or-
until after the affirmation.
Yes.
Or you just
So then-
accumulate enough of these death coins.
You wouldn't want to touch them. They were anathema to anybody else. They're literally made of dead things.
Right. So.
But yeah, sorry, that's
right.
something I wanted to prop up. And then yeah, I think next Thursday,
So
this
Thursday?
Thursday, yeah, we're talking about the Minotaur. We'll have
buddy.
Corbin back with us. I'll bring my mic this time.
We will have everything hopefully fixed.
Yep,
We'll have everything.
it'll work out beautifully.
Yeah, all these bugs. It's like we'll figure it out.
We'll have it
one of these
working.
days.
I mean, what was the big joke?
So in like, this is my fault, but one of the things that's hard to work with is like when we have a new mic get purchased or something like that, it's not here for me to work with until Kyle's here, and so I get like a short period of time to work with it, and
Kyle, show
so
up
I'm
earlier.
apologizing
My bad.
for not having it on the up and up, but I mean we're making progress, and we'll get it figured out, and then we'll have a system that works. Maybe Ian will be the one that figures it out anyway.
it'll work. We'll make
But
it
we
work.
will be here on Thursday.
Yep.
So
Talking about our Minotaurs. And that's the last in our series of the races.
And then we will start a new series.
Yeah, so excited to show you guys what that is on Thursday.
All right.
So thanks for popping in. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for commenting, supporting, and do the whole thing. Don't forget to comment on the videos. Go back, rewatch it. If you have any questions, drop those questions in the comments on the video. We will get back to you. I promise. I look every day.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.